Continuing our nearly year-long coverage of Florida's unemployment benefit problems, 10 months after thousands of Floridians learned firsthand how ill-equipped the state's unemployment system was to handle a wave of claims, we're now learning that the Chief Inspector General's office found in its review. I-Team investigator Kylie McGivern spoke with lawmakers about what happens now.
One point that I found to be just shocking is the fact that the contract that Deloitte was selected for was not actually fulfilled.
Florida hired Deloitte Consulting to build Connect, Florida's unemployment website hundreds of thousands of Floridians know as the system they couldn't get through, waiting months for their money. The Inspector General's review found Deloitte's contract with the state for Connect in 2010 mandated at least 200,000 users be able to get on at the same time. Well, the IG found Deloitte's testing was for around 4,200 users, not 200,000 as the contract required.
And that's pretty indicative of the types of pains we felt early on this pandemic when millions of people tried to get into this website and could not get through.
The state issued 3 audits of the Connect system between 2015 and 2019. The 2015 report identified 31 findings. More than half were still unresolved in 2019. A 4th audit from this year identifies more than a dozen issues remaining to be fixed.
All of this is costing us so much money. I mean, the audits cost money, and now the improvements are going to cost money. And if we had invested in maintenance over time, we would never be at this point today.
Recommendations from the IG report include the state knowing what it wants in an unemployment system, better monitoring of what it is getting from the vendor, and building in an escape plan and financial penalties if the vendor doesn't follow the contract, and having a process to fix audit findings.
And it's really going to be about performance. It's going to be about who was perhaps asleep at the switch. I got to imagine that they're looking either within the document or within their own notes or souls to find out, really what happened here.
Senator Jason Pizzo, a former prosecutor, is on the Select Committee on Pandemic Preparedness and Response, scheduled to hear from Deloitte on Monday.
Going to pretty much treat it like a trial. Once we establish whether or not that they're in agreement with the findings or they're in disagreement with the findings, it's when I start to get into more detail.
And we may have a preview. In an email to the I-Team, a Deloitte spokesperson told us they are sympathetic to the challenges some Florida residents have faced trying to access unemployment. But Deloitte finished work on the Connect project nearly 6 years ago after the state accepted the system, and we met all of our obligations.
The reality is that there were problems before the pandemic happened and they were ignored. And so we can't just scapegoat the blame onto a vendor. There is responsibility of the state to say, what did we do early on to hold this vendor accountable and to ensure that the public's money was being spent based on the contract?
I'm I-Team investigator Kylie McGivern, taking action for you.
Our team has been looking into Deloitte's history with the state of Florida since problems began with the unemployment system. Back in May of last year, anchor Paul LeGrone uncovered just how much of your tax dollars went to building that website that ultimately failed so many during this pandemic. You can watch that report on abcactionnews.com.